y'all doing? Everyone enjoying Render Day 2 with 3 or more hours of sleep, hopefully? Johnny, can you help me get this on the TV? Thank you. I am stoked to be talking to you guys. Today we'll be talking about scaling teams with culture as the primary consideration. So I'll start. Hi, I'm Monet. I am a Leo. I enjoy long walks on the Beltline, reading. I studied computer science in undergrad. I went on to be a back-end engineer, found my way into product management, then got a master's right here in Atlanta, human-computer interaction at Georgia Tech. I found my way to user research and finally product design. So I made my way all around the tech industry to land on product design. And I'm currently a design director at Square. So Square is a little fintech company that was founded in the Bay by Jack Dorsey. May or may not have heard of him. He also did Twitter. And the whole thing is around economic empowerment, right? So supporting small businesses and all businesses, honestly, and being able to scale and grow and serve their customers the best they know how. I lead a team of 28 people. In that, there are design managers, there are product designers, there are researchers, and we work cross-functionally with engineers and product managers to build dope stuff for our sellers. I have been at Square for almost 6 years. It's 5.5 this summer, and I am drinking all of the proverbial Square Kool-Aid. Love the culture, love the team, and really excited to be talking about Square and specifically growing teams within it. So I am here because I get stuff done and I get results. And I grew my team 14x in about 4 years. In 2018, we were 2 people, me and one other person. And today we are 28, which is ginormous and crazy. And in that number, it includes plenty of hiring, also some firing, some natural attrition, some reorganizations, and so there's a lot within that number. But all of that is around growing and shrinking and ultimately scaling teams. Most of that time, I was an only in that space, either an only woman in management in some circles or the only person of color in management, most definitely the only Black woman in most of the spaces I was in, which I can't divorce the story of growing and scaling teams without talking about who I am and the way I showed up in that. Hope you guys create space for that. Thank you. So why did I scale? I kind of had to. It was necessary. When I joined the Atlanta office in 2018, I was the only Black woman in the office. That is no longer the case, but I was for a really long time. The team was an engineering team. So our Atlanta office started out as a back-end team. They were charged with building our APIs to match our point-of-sale product, which is to say a huge engineering office. I was the second designer, which meant we were bringing design and teaching engineers how to work with designers. And the ratio was about 1 designer to every 50 engineers. So we were a huge bottleneck. That is not how you get dope stuff to your sellers, by having 2 engineers working with 100 plus, or sorry, 2 designers working with 100 plus engineers. So I scaled because we had to. I didn't have the ability to take my time and figure out, like, maybe we should think about, what 2 people could do in a year. No, it's like hire as quickly as you possibly can. And in scaling a team, there's stuff around how you pick what talent, how you recruit talent, how you decide what seniority you need. This isn't a talk about that. This is a talk about how you establish and protect a culture for your team that you want to see grow with you as your numbers grow. How did I do it? I did it the way that I want to do everything in my life, as responsibly and authentically as possible. It was important to me, especially as a new manager in this role, to do stuff that I could stand behind, to not embarrass my mama or grandmama anywhere. And so doing things that felt authentic to me. In hindsight, I did not have this grand plan of I'm going to scale my team 14x. I was solving the problem in front of me at a time and doing what felt right in my gut and doing something that I could stand behind. Speaking of authenticity, I would love for this to be a conversation as much as it possibly can. I'm a huge fan of snapping in the snap poetry way, so if there's something that resonates to you, feel free to get a little snap. More than happy to receive that. So I think about scale in the term of organizational leadership. Now, when we talk about culture, commonly we're talking about the fit, or do you jive with this team? And that is incredibly subjective, which also means it's incredibly biased, right? When you are hiring for that kind of culture, it's like you laugh the way we do, and you work the way we do, and you think the way we do, which is perpetuating all of the things that tech gets a bad rap for. What I'm talking about in organizational leadership is the defining a common set of goals and successes based on the culture that you want to build with your team. You can start strategizing about this now. Even if you are a team of one and don't have a team of people beneath you, start thinking about the kind of culture that you want to create for your company. Even if you don't plan on growing, how do you work with the team you've got right now? So these are the 5 tenets that I think about when I'm thinking about organizational leadership: strength, communication, leadership, ethics, and worldview. What we're going to talk about is my team's approach to culture. Yours should absolutely look different. Mine is based on my company, our business goals, the size and where we are as our growth maturity. Yours will look different, and it should, because everybody's culture is just a little different, and you get the flavor that you need. So let's start. Strengths. On my team, we value craft and rigor. When I say craft, it's high quality, get stuff done. We want it to be good. We want it to be excellent. And when I say rigor, it's not necessarily about details. It's about making sure that our ideas are challenged respectfully and that they are as robust and strategic as they possibly can be. When I started in product design, as we mentioned, I made my way around engineering and, the loop-de-loop-de-loop to finally get to design. I was incredibly insecure about what it meant to be a designer and my design skills. The Square designers are so dope. They make font typefaces and illustrate comic books and, are designing tattoos in their free time. And I was like, oh, I'm shook. Y'all are really good, and I'm just kind of here. And then I had to take a step back, and I will say this as a recovering imposter syndrome. I am a good one to have in your corner if you have a hard, nebulous problem. I get my stuff done. I am an excellent leader. I show up in a space, and I am not afraid to show up in that space. And balancing that, I did a very humbling thing, which is I hired people who were better than me. So I hired a design team that were phenomenal designers who could spot a 2-pixel misalignment from a mile away and were innovative thinkers and thought about this is how we can use new processes in Figma to make ourselves better, and this is how we can be showing up for our sellers. And it was humbling because I couldn't do what they could do, but I needed them on my team because we needed to be better. I say all that to say that it is not always bad to be the person who's not the smartest in the room. I think you kind of want that because it means that everyone on my team immediately knew that they were valuable and why I valued them. It's like, you do this, I do that, and together we're gonna go get this. Money is how you end that sentence. Okay. I am talking about high-performing teams. There are many flavors of how you can define your team. Specifically, high performance means that it is a high pressure, high experience needed on your team. At Square, we don't really have the luxury of waiting to see if it'll figure out. We work hard, we work fast, we are getting stuff done. No 2 days look the same because we are trying to go get this money, and we're trying to help our sellers get this money. And so it is a requirement that on my team, we are over-delivering and outperforming most people. So when I'm looking at this, it's from the frame of how can we be as high-performing as possible. This is the opposite of high performing is not a low performing team. I'm not saying that like if your team isn't high performing, therefore quit. That's not it. It's just that you think about this from the lens of competitive tech markets. It means that the people that we hire are a certain level of experience because I've got a finite number of people on my team and we got a lot of work to do. And while the ratio might not be 1 to 50 designers to engineers, it's still like 1 to 40. So we got a lot of work to do. Okay, communication. I appreciate predictive communication, which is to say that my team knows what I will say. As I am coming up with decisions or thinking through things, I like to explain how I got there. These are the priorities, these are the inputs, this is the way that I'm thinking about it. The benefit is, even if I'm not in the room, they can guess what I'll say, right? I ask the same of them. So as they're bringing me challenges or problems or answers that they're coming up with, I ask pretty much the same questions. How'd you get here? What factors are contributing to this decision? Is this a controversial thought? And if so, what's the other side saying? Why are they wrong? Do you agree with them? And what it means is we're creating a logic map where I feel safe to share how I got there. I also have to feel safe with them critiquing any point of that process, right? You share your logic so that people can either follow it or challenge it. Ultimately, it means that when we're talking as a team, that I appreciate being able to have my team make decisions on my behalf, because as long as you know what I'm gonna say, then I trust that you can do and speak on my behalf. Leadership and succession. So I have a ton of opinions on leadership and leadership style. I also have a ton of opinions on Succession, the HBO show. This isn't about either of those things. This is about leadership in the form of succession planning. So, succession planning is about building a strong bench of leaders beneath you that could do some or all of your job. It will feel like working yourself out of a job, which is also very humbling and kind of scary. And I'll start by saying, like, if you are in an environment where that feels safe, and you'll know if it feels safe, then great. If that is not your case, if you don't feel like you can level up a bench because they might actually come for your job, you should probably look for a psychologically safe place, but we'll get to that in a second. When we're talking about a strong bench of people, the beauty is that you can, I don't know, take a 2-week vacation somewhere and the team won't crumble because your bench is strong and they can step in for you in certain places. It means that if there's an opportunity that you're interested in your career, you won't feel like you've left your team completely hanging because you are constantly building them up so that they can perform on your behalf. The other part of this is also evaluating what happens if you have someone or people on your team who cannot meet that bar of excellence at the level or speed in which you need them to, in which case you find yourself in performance management territory. It is not great, would not recommend, terrible, terrible, do not do this for fun. However, if you have to, there are some things to know. I will talk about my experience. The first thing to note, admittedly, my first performance management did not get on it as quickly as I could. Why? Because I'm not a quitter. And I was like, well, if this person isn't succeeding on my team, it must be something I'm doing. Like if I'm the leader of the team and you're not succeeding, what am I not giving you? So we tried and we coached and we coached. And then I realized it's not necessarily that they're a bad designer or that they're bad at their job. It just means that your performance on this team and this culture isn't a mix. And there's possibly a better team where you can be set up for success. And that's not here, and us trying to make it work isn't quitting, it's actually doing the kind thing for all of us. The second part of it is the optics were incredibly challenging for me. I showed up, as I do. I am a Black woman, if that is not obviously clear. And I was managing the performance of a white male. Now, taking the gender and the race politics, it took me a really long time because I felt like I needed to be excellent. And every single thing I documented, did, told them had to be excellent. Because there's safety in excellence, right? that if you know I have done everything right, I have documented, I have done all this stuff, even if it took me a year to do it, I have been excellent. The surprising part was, as soon as I finished that situation, my peers and other leaders had a newfound respect for me, because being able to take action and make decisions and do what's right for my team was way more important than any of that other stuff. Bias to action is going to be your friend here. If you start leveling up your team when you need them to perform, you're too late. And if you wait until someone is drastically underperforming to start managing their performance, you're also too late. I'm gonna pause and say I am only ever talking about psychologically safe spaces. Only, always, forever. If your team is not psychologically safe, and if you are not contributing to a culture of psychologically safety, please don't scale your team. We're just trying to do right for the world. We're trying to make it better than we found it. And if you are not actively trying to diminish and squash toxic environments, then you're perpetuating it. It's one or the other. Now, I'm gonna go back to some of the things I mentioned. In that scenario of the optics, I felt comfortable and confident because I was in a psychologically safe space. There are probably other places where me showing up as a minority, trying to manage out someone who is not a minority, could have gone terribly. I am not saying to just go do this tomorrow. You should talk to people and really evaluate where you are in your company. The same thing goes with communication. I am confident with providing my team clear communication and predictability because we have a culturally safe and psychologically safe environment to build that trust on. Ethics. I think it is incredibly important to be kind, and I think it's more important to be kind than it is to be nice. So the nice thing to do is to not make anyone uncomfortable and to never have a conversation that's really hard. But the kind thing to do is to deliver clear, actionable, concise, and timely feedback so that everyone can get better. The nice thing to do is to not embarrass anybody, but it's way more kind to tell them they have spinach in their teeth, because then they can fix it and be done with it, right? And so when we're so focused on how people will receive a message and not being so conflict averse, we're not actually doing the right thing, which is leveling up our teams and making everyone a little bit better. I also think this goes with challenging ideas. I think it is kind to hear an idea and ask questions to make it better. It's not tearing it down, but as designers, we do a lot of critiques, and those critiques come from the space of, I like where you're going with this. This is how I can help you be better. The nice thing to do is say, okay, if that's what you want to do. And that's you like it, I love it. They never love it when they say that, right? Lastly, our worldview. So worldview is the ability to see the world from other people's eyes, empathy, if you will. We at Square are champions for our sellers, and we champion them in the room because we are building products and tools that they need to make their businesses better. They're not co-designing with us, so we have to understand what their needs are and champion for them. I'm also a champion for my team. I ask them to have strong opinions and to stand up for design and champion for our sellers, which means I'm kind of asking them to ruffle as many feathers as possible, that there's a healthy friction and tension between our cross-functional partners working together. The only way I can ask that of my team is if I am also championing their interests and ideas at the leadership level, almost in a I got your back kind of way. I know what you're gonna say, you know what I'm gonna say, because we've got that predictable communication, which means that if someone comes and says, someone on your team came at me crazy, I'm like, they did, I asked them to, right? And that's a level of transparency that I appreciate in championing for my team. I also champion for diversity. And so in hiring practices, in the different rooms I'm in throughout Square, making a note of who's in the room and who's not. Asking the hard questions, making sure that we are doing our best to build the company and the environment that we want to be in. I am extremely proud of the diversity on our team, and it's from many different angles, and I have said to recruiting, and I will say it again, put my team toe-to-toe with any team at Square, and we will come out more diverse. Not that it's a competition, but if you win, we all win, so do that, right? So I have used these tenets of organizational leadership at every stage of our growth. These have changed over time, and if I were to reflect on this, 3 years ago, this wouldn't have been the list. In the same way that in 3 years, I don't expect this to be the list. So how do you make sure that it's changing over time? I ask. Maybe about once or twice a year, I'll check in with my team, and we'll talk about the outcomes that we're able to achieve and how we can be better. Notice I'm not asking my team to reflect on the culture. I'm asking them, what outcomes do we want to get after? And then from there, how should we be using or reevaluating the tenets of our organizational leadership? What this also means is I'm not doing this by myself. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night with a thought to say, this is the culture of the team. We are doing this together, because in the same way that I can't be the magic that holds it together, I need my team to be bought into this idea and our collective goal of where we're going. That is important for succession planning. It also means that if you're a team of 4, yeah, you could probably control the culture. But if you're in 400, there are so many other people that are going to be perpetuating your culture. So everyone has to be bought in. That is how scale works. So good culture will scale if you invest the time and the energy and the resources to understand your culture and map it to your business successes and understand who's on your team and how to make them the most successful. That will continue to scale. The huge caveat here, and it shouldn't be a surprise, bad culture will scale too. If you have a toxic work environment, doubling your team size will only make it a doubly more toxic work environment. We're going with it. So as you are thinking about this, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but really evaluate what are the tenets of the things that make this toxic. Are we communicating in the right way? Maybe I can go work on that. Are we being transparent and ethically safe when we're talking to one another? Maybe I can go work on that. So what culture is worth scaling? I think you know, right? Think about the times when you felt safe and seen on different teams. When have you had your ideas challenged for the idea and you felt like it was a productive conversation to make the idea better? When were you able to make mistakes and not be penalized for them or have some detrimental thing happen, and instead your team came together and said, yep, that was a mistake, but this is how we will do it better? Those are the cultures worth scaling. If you take nothing else from this talk, I hope you remember, if you invest in establishing a culture and being very intentional about the one you build, it will pay dividends for your team today, your team tomorrow, and your team forever. Thank you.